Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast. Every week, we, your hosts, bring you a story for you to listen to while you fly an airplane. Good luck, pilot. I'm, of course, Levi.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. So, quick synopsis of the last... No read today. Quick synopsis of last week's story in order to give you some context of where we're going. This is a continuation of a sequel, which is kind of a fun way to think.
Sequel of a sequel.
Yeah. So the gods are back, and they've started a pretty gnarly religion around themselves. The gods that are back are actually aliens that seeded life on Earth and are created humanity in order to have replacement bodies for themselves and in order to have people to sort of grow up and, be their prodigies and teach, and started a civilization of humans. This is a sequel of The Gods Are Here, so there's some of that stuff involved. Seth, you don't need a reminder about what's going on in the story, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm
There's a prophecy.
pretty well aware
There's a
of kind of what's
prophecy
going
about the 10 gods being destroyed, about 12 more coming back. It's all very cryptic. No one really knows what to make of it. The 11th god, the 11th unknown god, has he's come back, but he's decided to start like a college. He is not the villain like was thought in the previous story. He is in fact the hero. The other 10 gods that we previously thought were the heroes are actually the villains. So it's kind of a twisty twist on that. What story element did you have for this week?
I had wild card.
And I had unique artifact. So we've pretty much talked about the whole story, except we haven't really talked about what it is they're trying to do, right? What's the giant heroic quest our heroes are trying to accomplish? Is that true?
Kind of. I think last time we were muddling into kind of the end goal, what that might look like.
Right, because what the 10 gods want to accomplish, the 10 villains, or it's really just 4 of them. It's not all 10. The 4 of them, the war, civilization, agriculture, and I think it was like architecture.
Commerce or something.
Yeah, they're the ones who are kind of trying to, now that they're sort of their essences have been returned to them a little bit more and they can show up and start to do minor miracles. They're trying to turn the people, basically trying to get back their essence so that their bodies can be kind of completely rejuvenated, and they get back the essence by sacrificing people too. Because what happened was when the gods using air quotes when I say gods, when they created the world, they split up their individual personality essences throughout all of the humans in order to sort of give people the complexity of thought to manifest in different ways. And the 11th god introduced things like fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which was originally seen as like the fall, like introducing evil, but in truth, he was trying to get them to notice the fact that humanity to notice the fact that they are sort of programmed to follow the gods and programmed to do what they want, and they're slaves, they're not free, the gods don't love them, right? Are we thinking of different stories here? Is that pretty much what you remember as well?
No, I think that's kind of where it was going.
Yeah. So now the 11th god, who everyone previously thought was sort of the enemy, is really kind of the weakest one of all of them, who's just kind of trying to educate people now instead of kind of forcing them to do what he wants. And he's not really a god. He's just like because they aren't gods. They're just really powerful aliens.
They're just the architects of this reality or world or whatever it is, this race of people.
And so for all intents and purposes, they are gods, but they aren't gods, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't like transcend the physical and stuff like that. Although technically they can teleport, so maybe they do. Okay, Seth, what's the definition of God?
God derives from the Germanic word for goat or good.
Oh, okay, that's fun.
So in a sense, if I'm thinking of this right, that's why the concept of like wishing good luck or God luck.
Oh,
right.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like a divine luck or divine favor. I mean, because that's what luck is like a pro favor. So I mean, really, the definition of a god you've got, something that is of some kind of esteemed power over, those that revere it, as in like a rain god. So if they want rain or they don't want rain, they either pray or sacrifice to whatever being or
Right.
thing
Right.
that they would assume. And so it makes it out to be a god, or in essence, kind of something that is good as opposed to like evil, or just like a designation for like a higher being above, us mere mortals. But
Right.
I don't,
So
I don't know if that makes it
for our
more
intents,
precise.
for our intents and purposes, they take the position of gods because they are in fact the architects of the entire world.
Correct.
Right. So one of our heroes / main characters is Haggai. He was the anti-hero from the last story. He has pretty much decided that the only way to kill these gods is to take all of their essence away. And there's another person, the wise old woman. She is like this legendary sort of data broker who she has been alive for hundreds of years because of a blessing from the god of health and healing. And so she also feels like it's time for her maybe to be done being alive. And what she can do is she can take all of the, both of them are pretty self-sacrificing in this way. They want to, the only way, and the way that they were able to stop the 11th god in the last book was by using like a blinding knife, or like basically it's a surgical implement that can remove essence from you and immobilize you and reduce your ability to communicate with the outside world. It's what they use to sort of disperse their essence throughout all of humanity. That's the only way that they can think of right now to confront these 4 gods who are like gaining power every day, is by using one of these siphon knives. I said blinding knife because it's from the Lightbringer series, which is a great book series. You'd understand it in that way, but we'll just call it a binding knife or a siphon knife. So it looks
that's a lot better.
Yeah, it looks like a knife, but it's basically has a ton of storage. It's a piece of tech. It's not magic. It's a piece of tech that when you stab or activate it, so to the simple minds of the simple people who aren't the quote unquote gods, when you stab someone with it, it takes their essence away and therefore stores up that inside the knife. And so it's kind of like a terrifying process too, because it doesn't just kill, it like removes their personality, and so I think that it's kind of like this thing that people use. I imagine that they have some at the college where they're figuring out what they're going to do about these gods, and the 11th god is there trying to educate them, about the best way forward. And he considers it like incredibly morally reprehensible to use one because it's incredibly painful, right? Especially to people who aren't the gods. It's like because it like tears your soul apart, basically,
Yeah.
So I have this kind of image of they're all sitting around. What I said last week was that they sort of figure out that they're this college where the 11th god is kind of set up his education center. They figure it out kind of fairly early on. And this college is in the mountains, the same mountain range that Haggai was put in kind of king of at the end of the last book. And he's investigating like people being kidnapped and increased kidnappings and things like that. And that's kind of what leads him to this plot and leads him to this college. And then several other people that he traveled with in the last book kind of meet up with him, and they all kind of go, because the whole world is kind of turning to religion because the gods are back. And this college is kind of considered not very in right now, and so that's why it's kind of up in the mountains, and they journey there to learn because they need information about history. And in doing so, I'd say it's sort of towards the middle of the book, they meet the professor, and through the process of sort of getting to know him and talking, it's kind of realized that he is this 11th god, and he has been kind of working at sort of reminding people about history and telling people not to forget, where people are really, people are clinging to religion, and he is trying to do it via education, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So he sort of.
All right. So
okay. Yeah. Go.
So is this still kind of part of a recap, or
no? We're into it.
Okay. So I have a couple ideas for, I guess you could say, wrap up now that we're just into it, but I have a couple ideas on how some of the things unfold. So you had unique artifact. I've got not random insert, but the
Wild card.
wild card. So I have a couple, not that it's world building, but key points. So if you want to introduce your artifact, and then I can bring in the couple ideas I have on how it turns in the end to kind of go into our ending direction, if that makes sense, because this would be the kind of the wrap up of it.
Right. So the unique artifact, there's a little bit of history, but the unique artifact is essentially this. The reason why the race that the gods are can use the siphon knives so easily, it's like an evolutionary thing. It's like this is part of their currency. This is part of their how they trade ideas. This is like so that this essence that creates them is very malleable in the system, and this entire race is at war, right? This is a bunker, kind of a homestead, kind of a, what would you call it? What are the people you call who just never stop stocking up canned food and
Prepper.
Yeah, this is a prepper bunker,
Like a bunker
for these guys, right? Create a race to build up society, go to sleep for a couple thousand years, come back, society's all developed. You have like a sustainable system here now. But because of how they are and how loose this essence is in their system, there is a bomb that's on the moon. This bomb essentially cooks off and forces out and destroys this essence, right? So call it magnetized energy, right? That's passed on, from father to son and mother to daughter, call it whatever. So it's kind of like an EMP, but it's like a bomb. It's like a soul bomb. It like basically destroys the essence. And there's nothing that you can do to block it. You can make a bunker with special materials to block it and stuff like that. But it's this artifact, and it's on the ship that the 11th god brought because he is part of a different faction of this fight than the rest of them. And he's building basically the dead man switch, right? So he's using his position in this whole thing to basically, he wants to hold them hostage on the planet. Like basically say, don't leave, don't do anything else, or else you're all dead. And no one else knows about this except for him. And there can be like reference to it in some ways, they find a way to detect the ancient technology and they notice there's some on the moon. But that's what the unique artifact is. It's his ship, but it's pretty much derelict now because it's been there for thousands of years in the atmosphere, not protected at all. But it has this soul bomb or soul EMP or whatever you want to call it on it. And he has got, his philosophy is basically, if I can't get these creatures that these other gods made to resist and to learn and to fight and to defeat them, then we're just gonna have to be done. We're just gonna be done. I came here to hunt down this squad of these guys, and it's taking me a couple thousand years, which is kind of pittance in our, to him, it's like been like 2 years he's been tracking them, the equivalent of their lifespans, So yeah, how's that mix in?
Get a slight idea and how it mixes in. Okay, so here's my thought here. I was gonna try to throw it in a loop a little bit because you've got Reed had happy ending, and I didn't want to do this to just like rain on his parade if he came up with something really good.
Right.
So I was trying to think of a couple different things, but being that he's not here, the wild card will kind of be sad ending. However, how exactly this is sad, I think it's just that it's not that it's going to be like, oh, everything turned out all right. It'll turn out.
Yeah.
But not just like, oh, and they defuse the bomb and they get rid of the god. Like,
yeah.
So especially without him here with some magical, wonderful way for it to end happily. I think what happens here. So the idea that I'm kind of formulating here, the syringe, the knife, you had a good name for
siphon
it a
knife.
Minute ago. The siphon knife. They call it a knife because it's an implement. It's most like a knife.
Right.
Right. However, in a sense, it's also like, you find a stick in the forest and it looks like
Yeah.
a firearm.
No, exactly.
Right. It's like, well, it is a stick, but we call it the gun stick because, well, it looks like a gun, or it's a sword because it looks like a sword. We've all been kids. I hope kids that might be listening to this haven't been deprived of finding a stick in the forest and going, this is.
Yeah.
I can't think of the names of, the swords, but
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So like that's why they would call it a knife, because it's kind of like that. However, and my guess is that there's probably more than one of these.
Oh, yeah.
Or different implements like this. And I think the 11th god has, or the 11th being or whatever, he's got several of them. And one of the things that he's been teaching, and not that he can like tell it outright, but I think, and this is a character that we brought in last time. So Sebastian, he's like one of the people at this college, I think. He's educated, he's read just about everything, he knows all the different, all the stuff, but he just doesn't narrow down to actually seeming to believe what one thing is or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so he's been following him around. I know it sounds like I'm jumping around because I went from this knife back to, this other concept. But anyways, so they're kind of fighting this. They're trying to figure out, the dead man switch. So basically he has this. And ultimately what they're living in is like an artificial, not that it's not there, but everything is like artificially made, the sky, the rain. That's why that was all a connection to, these different gods that would kind of control that tech in the background to
sort of
keep things running.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so kind of back to the prophecy, you have, the idea that 4 will fall or 3 will fall, right? Did I say 3 or 4? No, yeah, 3 will fall, 2 will falter,
fourth,
and then 1 will fall.
Yeah, 4th will fall, but not the 2 that faltered.
Right. So I think a twist on that is because we kind of established that these people are kind of the same thing. Everyone is kind of relating or thinking that they are about the gods or about the different city states or about the different things. And the way that some prophecy stuff can go, it could be kind of anything.
Yeah.
However, I think the way that it would go is that the 4 that kind of have teamed up, right? Obviously in there you have the 11th, so I'm going to make this kind of part of the god thing. But then you have the 11th comes back, but unexpected and not in the way that, people would, expect. And that's what he did, right? However, then 2 will falter, and I think what we have is we have Haggai, and I can't remember the name that Reed came up with for the wise old woman.
I don't remember either.
So anyways, Haggai and the wise old woman, I would say they're the 2 that falter. So everyone's looking for
2 of the gods to falter.
2 of the gods to falter, weaken, because then they kind of see this and it's like, okay, these 4 gods have arisen, and then they end up killing or taking out 3 of these other gods, or maybe they destroy 3 cities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's 3 cities that they take over. Those are the 3 that fall, right? However, then 2 will falter. It's like one of those like linguistic things where the subject is removed each time. So what's happening is, as far as the prophecy goes, the subject matter is changing back and forth with each of the different kind of lines, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So the 3 fall, right? They've taken over 3 cities. That kind of coalition has taken over 3 of the main cities. So maybe they don't kill any of the other gods. They just kind of taken over in power 3 of the cities. And then 2 will falter, right? So then you have Haggai and the wise old woman. They falter. They've been fighting this. It's like bigger than they think, and maybe by sacrificing themselves, but basically, they falter. Not that they stop wanting, what might be good, but they falter back, that thinking if they, give up, I don't know how, does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
right.
Definitely.
So they falter, but then they don't fall, right? But then when I might be getting ahead of myself here. But anyways, then you have the
4th will fall.
When the 4th falls, so maybe they do, then it goes back to the cities, and maybe they take a 4th city, right? Or one of them
could be
someone falling.
Could be the 4th of the gods falls.
That what I had originally thought in my mind, but I couldn't figure out a way to actually kind of put it together. So yeah, so either one of the other cities fall, or they take out one of the other gods, which is not one of the 2 that faltered. So that's why I would say it would have to be
yes, it's not
one of the gods, because they're not a 4th or another will fall, but not the 2 that faltered. And there was some way that I was trying to get it where in trying to figure all this out, Sebastian, not as it puts his foot down, but like puts a couple pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Right. And gets a hold of that knife, right? And maybe he jumps in, like, as the two are falling. They haven't fallen, but he jumps in, but then gets a hold of that knife, which then keeps him from dying. So he dies, but then being that that's connected to the essence, it keeps him alive.
Okay.
Right. However, then it becomes a key, right? So, or like a wand. I mean, not to make it like Harry Potter, but like I did have that mind where then like the 11th god that's doing this all through like study and
Yeah, no, for sure.
science and whatever, his thing turning into like a Hogwarts.
That's good.
You'll see why in a minute.
Okay.
And so you have now with holding that siphon knife, it becomes more of a wand or key, and he basically turns off. It's basically like a focal point where then he can turn off. It's a key into the rest of, because if it can suck the essence out of it, it's basically the energy. He could turn the sky off, right?
Oh, okay.
Like, and that's what he realizes. And so he then rises up as then the powerful figure, the 12th, right? And then through just like a sheer, I don't know, wizardry, if you can use that word, puts down the 4, like puts away. But now what's happened, so it kind of solves the issue, but it moves in, so that does away with the old.
Right.
But now he's also turned off all of their tech or disconnected it from them. So now he's wielding nearly kind of unimaginable power.
Right.
Right. And so and this is where kind of the sad ending would come in.
Yeah. But
Is
wait,
that
before you do that, can I just insert an interesting
Okay,
idea?
yeah.
So what we could basically have this set up with is that the gods aren't gods, obviously, but they're more like fairies, right? Creatures from a different dimension. And through some time in the past, they have essentially siphoned so much of humanity's power and humanity's essence. That is the essence that they use. So that's what they use to power all of their quote unquote magic. That's what they use to power all of their illusions. So basically, he gets this key, this siphon knife, which essentially is a key, as in it takes the power back from them. And as they sort of reduce in ability and power, they kind of fade back out into the background like a fairy would, not able to like manipulate the world as much. That's just a thought, but continue.
Yeah, so I think that could be part of it. It pushes them out ultimately.
Yeah.
But as far as like the sad ending that I've got that would kind of wrap it around is that, again, because I wasn't sure how Reed was going to have anything wrap up for a happy ending. So I'm going to give it kind of a happy ending and then a twist that makes it
sad.
Kind of sad.
Yeah.
Is that it's like the realization that these people then actually do hold all this power. Right?
Yeah.
And, they kind of, in that instance, they make things right. But then who's going to, bring the rain? Who's going to push the tide in and out? Right? Without that other stuff behind there.
Without all that other stuff.
Now you've basically got all what then rises out of that then is hundreds of thousands. You might maybe have an order that maybe the 11th kind of makes these people, and they kind of go around and they're always trying to kind of like set things right and make sure the farmer has enough rain, and they've kind of got to like wave their
they do
sticks around.
They do like liturgical work that does nothing at first.
How's that?
They do liturgies and stuff. They we have a very unique sort of ritual that we do. This helps you with the rain, and right now it does nothing, but then once the power's been returned to people, all of a sudden those actions start. This makes me think of I don't know if you've seen it. It's this really great TV show called Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange.
No.
The synopsis is, you should watch it. I can show you where to watch it. It's really good, but the synopsis is that like all of magic has left England, and it's like the Napoleonic era, and magic comes back basically, but one guy wants to keep it like really gentlemanly, and one guy wants to like figure out like the old magic. And so by figuring out the old magic at the end of the story, blah blah blah, interesting story, magic basically gets returned back to the common man. Anyways, I don't know if that's where you were going, but I've been watching it.
Yeah, close, because basically, not that there might not be a lot of people that slide into this like, oh, well, that's just something I can't do.
Yeah.
Right. And so they can't. But if they understand that they can,
Yeah.
and they do, well, then, you got people casting curses or stopping the rain and then starting the rain or making a flood just because they want to or to get back. And then it's just like it's like, what's that? If everyone can do it, then it's not all that special.
Right. If everyone's a superhero, then no one's a superhero.
Right. And so that's kind of where you're moving on to. So now it's basically giving every small time despot nearly ultimate power.
Right.
And it's not that they are all getting along either. So although they fix this problem with the old system, it brings in something new. But then as far as the sad ending for it goes, it's not that that is all good. Because it's setting up then that is just, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I hope I didn't jump around too much, because I know I hit like several different points and I think I came back around to most of them.
Yeah, so basically the essence is that Sebastian figures it out, stops, uses one of the siphon knives, but doesn't quite understand the full scope of everything and basically turns off everything. But in doing so, sort of redistributes the power out to everyone.
Right.
It could be something as simple as like if they kill all the gods and then, or if all the gods die and all that essence goes out and then the siphon knife sort of distributes it out to everyone, so all of a sudden everyone has the power of 1,000th of a god or 1,000,000th of a god, which is still so much more than they ever had before, that all of a sudden everyone has, like you said, what could be considered nearly infinite power. I like that. It really sets itself up for a sequel, which if somebody draws sequel, we're going to get a double sequel, which would be a first for us. So,
and I would think, and again, that's where I think that's the one thing I didn't like end up on. But then, so some of these items, because if there is more than the one siphon knife, so basically now you have like different wands or staves or items
right,
that are like keys.
right,
And then so now you have this kind of college, which is kind of at a place where it was steeped in the combat style. And now that, this college that's set up there. So now basically in this new and ever changing world, they're now training, I hate to say like training wizards, but like a wizard academy.
yeah,
that
basically.
Then they're training, going out and basically like Texas Rangering it.
I like it.
Trying to like set things back in order. But so that was kind of the sad ending, is it makes like a very worse thing. It fixes the one thing, but makes a bigger issue. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good. I love stories like that. Stories don't do the end of the world very well. I like stories that have a sort of something you thought was going to be the end of the world, but then it turns out that no, the end of the world's going to be much crazier than that. This was just like a Tuesday, which was terrible and scary and whatever, but not anyway as terrible as the actual end of the world will be,
Right. And to bring in your artifact again too. So now you have this thing that like will destroy it. So let's decide this. Or maybe that's for a sequel, when someone gets sequel.
Yeah. Well, my thought,
maybe not everybody knows about it, or maybe that's what the college, one of the main things the college is doing is trying to protect anyone else with a key to have access to that thing.
Yeah. Or maybe,
anyways,
I would say that would be kind of cool if that's what it was. Or maybe it's something like it did go off and it was what helped to redistribute all of the power or something, and in doing so killed all of the gods who were at that point made up primarily of that essence. So when it sort of tore that apart and redistributed everything, they were just kind of wiped out, including the 11th. Or it's still up there. I kind of like the idea of it still being up there, or the idea of it having gone off. But
maybe that's what we'll have to find out in the sequel.
Exactly. We'll see if we pull sequel on this next round we're about to pull here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wait It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast. If you liked it, send us a message. Send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. Or add us on Twitter at @GetsBetterCast. We'd love to hear your suggestions, your thought-provoking ideas, or your general banter. And until next time, I would say, just wait, guys. It'll get better.